Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from generational real estate empires, cliffside legacy falls, and the boutique hotel fortunes of private California dynasties, and plunge straight into the high-octane, calculation-heavy tracking grids of high-profile judicial corruption loops, weaponized class action litigation, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an elite legal operative running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, adrenaline-slicked parameters of a massive corporate liability war and an exclusive book club selection, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of an intense, past-fueled deception matrix with Culpability, the exceptional, pulse-pounding speculative procedural thriller masterpiece, engineered by the absolute, undisputed sovereign of historical subversion, intricate legal exposure plots, and high-velocity systemic dread, Bruce Holsinger. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads where a fierce, obsessed primary legal asset running an unyielding safety loop, a calculating, manipulative shadow corporate network running a high-stakes proximity tracking and liability extraction routine, and an absolute defense against a terrifying institutional malpractice ledger collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn psychological thrillers where an endangered, hyper-observant protagonist must navigate an absolute maze of rigged courtroom filings, corrupt municipal cover-ups, and a deadly ring of active personal frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised civil justice ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep behavioral profiling, calculated evidentiary boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner network, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, reputable attorney uncovers a massive industrial negligence nexus, only to realize their own firm and family lineage are the architects of the disaster diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Holsinger completely dominates the high-concept legal thriller meets suffocating corporate conspiracy lore dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating institutional paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like John Grisham, Scott Turow, Michael Connolly, and Corinne Slaughter, while treating realistic judicial logistics, complex document review discovery pipelines, and protective high-density extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse asset, operating under a severe, calculation-heavy handicap of intense career exposure, systemic industry blackmail, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within his own firm's historical database. Behind our protagonist's rigorous litigation filing footprints and tense courtroom performance logs lies an intricate matrix of hidden faction allegiances, deeply buried high society friction, and sharp high-stakes tactical maneuvers. His collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following a high-stakes class action breakthrough, his entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from an active unseen corporate predator, parsing complex behavioral shifts from corrupt judicial handlers, and shielding his vulnerable professional sanity node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite cleanup offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected high-frequency structural anomaly breaches his active scanning perimeter. During a standard discovery phase data dump, his close-quarters reviews register an impossibly terrifying network of systemic culpability, a paper trail explicitly connecting a fatal local public crisis to the boardrooms of his most prestigious corporate clients. As the hostile investigative phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across his ticking clock timeline, the unauthorized counter-surveillance and radical document excavation reveals that the conspiracy traces directly back to his own lineage's historical wealth asset accumulation. The standard boundaries of routine corporate compliance and peaceful civilian safety protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. He forms a volatile, calculation-heavy pact with a highly manipulative whistleblower asset who is entirely too willing to leak the structural data stream, thrusting him directly into an active invisible war across the razor-thin veil between justice and institutional erasure, where deceptive partners masking their true tracking coordinates and a ruthless shadow network launch aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress his survival files. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their historical and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the sleek downtown boardrooms, dark records archives, and private fortified residential zones into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant hero is forced to deploy his massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve his focus before his adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes his boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, determined to deploy deep digital extortion loops, continuous professional gaslighting, and persistent dominance to shatter his defense, only to realize his hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight deposition breakthrough, every silent choice to stand off against an encroaching adversary behind standard architectural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at his reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped, as Bruce Holsinger reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial corporate audit or managing a difficult client disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of institutional manipulation and psychopathic supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark possessive loyalty around their building alliance. A brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes evidentiary breakthroughs shifts the clock into its terminal phase, proving that iconic, terrifying legacy figures from the broader elite underworld have chaffed them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure his sanctuary, our resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of his final boundary lines. It is a legal thriller, speculative corporate noir, judicial mystery, and high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one uncovered deposition triggers a fatal corporate boardroom showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Holsinger writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, perfectly capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate takeover, and the distinct, subtle scent of polished mahogany, expensive fountain pen ink, pristine legal vellum, cold steel, dynamic adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary installment marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft, alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks worthy of the highest prestige book club recognition. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs, before ratcheting up to an absolute jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Culpability is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unput-outable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.